maybe even seeing an OD and stuff like that, you know?
Yeah, well, me personally, I OD'd several times, and being around a bunch of heroin addicts, I've seen a lot, like, and yes, living in the Klingerman apartments, I've seen shootings, like just walking to the store as a little girl. They knew me because of my brothers, so they had respect for me, but yeah, I've seen people being shanked or, a gun put to somebody's head and stuff like that. So it just becomes the norm in your life.
Yeah.
You just learn how to deal with it.
Yeah.
And then, yeah.
You're not the first one to say that. And that's like weird how people can say, like, yeah, I used to walk over bodies, or I used to see people get stabbed and shot and jumped, and it became a norm. Yeah, man, you're going to see future videos where people have said that in my past videos. And that's like where other people be like, man, I can't believe that would become somebody's norm. But it actually, it is. You know, I mean, it's part of your environment.
Yeah, the houses that I used to hang out with, they were empty houses. And so, we used to kick back there, and every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday as growing up, like, those would be our hangout areas.
Yeah.
And so, people would try to come in and from other neighborhoods and stuff like that. And so we were in the middle of the guys fighting, and sometimes I was in the middle of us girls fighting with other neighborhoods and stuff like that too. So, seeing somebody get shanked or shot, or it was the norm. It was like a weekly activity.
Yeah, that's it's sad though for a youngster, to grow up like that and see that,
Yeah.
Another question I have, like, so you said you were doing heroin at 15. Like, do you remember that first time? Like, who kind of pushed you into doing that? That first time you ever.
The father of my 3 kids, he started doing heroin, and I remember, like, he was doing something, and I was always the type, like, wait a minute, you're doing something and you're not giving me none,
Yeah.
And so, and I didn't, like, because I was brought up in that atmosphere, I had no fear. I had no fear of nobody, of nothing, like, and then too, I was the type, like, if I'm gonna do something, I'm gonna do it 100%. I was always the last one drinking. Everybody was all knocked out, and I'd still be wanting to go get beer,
Yeah.
And so I just had that 100%, drive within me, and so. Yeah, so I would see them doing stuff, and I'm like, man, what are you doing? And at first you'd be like, no, nothing. I'm like, no, tell me, like, what are you doing? I want some,
Yeah.
I don't want to be left out. And so he started giving me some. I didn't know how to stick a needle in my arm for many years. And he would have to stick a needle in my arms or in my neck, anywhere, like in my legs. And then when he got busted, I had to learn, because I would go home and kick cold turkey.
Yeah.
And I said, man, I'm not going home today, because it was hard. It was hard to kick cold turkey.
Yeah.
And so finally I said, you know what? No, I'm going to do this. And so I learned how to stick a needle in my arm. I learned how to go boosting and do whatever it took. Put a knife on someone's throat. And I never sold myself. Well, I probably did a couple of times, and I said, you know what? This ain't for me, and I'm not disrespecting anybody that did that, to each his own, and you got to do what you got to do, but that just wasn't for me, and so I just took the different route where I would, go and boosting and take, go into a store, I would take a bunch of Levi's, and then I have a driver out there, and as soon as the lady went behind the counter,
Yeah.
I would run out and I'd be like, I'm out of here,
Yeah, it's a trip, because a lot of people I've talked to that were on not necessarily just heroin, but all different drugs. But at heroin they chase the dragon, and it just changes them to a totally different person. I've heard people say, like, oh man, crack and meth and all this stuff changed people. It's been happening since way back when, when heroin was around. It changed people. You know what I mean? They would rob their families and rob anybody just to go and get their fix. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that whole addiction and changing people, that's been around for a long time. And it's sad that people have to go through that, but just thank God that he brought you out of that and where you're alive. You know what I mean? Because so many people have OD'd and just, they didn't get to make it. You know what I mean? And that's just thank God that you're here to be able to glorify and say, hey, this is what I went through, and tell people out there that are thinking about, oh man, I want to try this. Just let them know. See, you want to go hard on something and do 100%, do it on something positive, you know, not on drugs or you know doing anything that's bad like that, you know.
No,
So
exactly. Like
so
like I could have died many times.
yeah,
You know, God protected me. I remember this one time I had went to LA, and LA was not my stopping grounds. But I had went with, you know, a girl out there, and she was doing meth, and I was strung out on heroin. So she was doing meth all night, and so, you know, in the morning, you know, morning came, and I had to get my fix. And so I had, you know, some, you know, heroin. I didn't have a needle. And then I said, man, I gotta go look for an edit real quick, like, you know. And so I went and I found this guy. I ran into this guy and I said, you know, hey, where can I find an edit at? And then he, you know, he goes, well, follow me. And so I went and he took me into this abandoned building. And, you know, I seen, you know, other people in there. They were slamming, they were doing their drugs and stuff like that. I didn't know this guy, you know. And so now that I think back, I'm like, man, this guy could have raped me. He could have killed me. He could have did all kinds of stuff. He took my car, but that was it, you know. And then I found it after my parents found me where I was at. And so, but, you know, that he just took my car, man. He could have done all kinds of other stuff too. So God always protected me, you know.
And so like using heroin, that's the one thing where there's AIDS, there's hepatitis, there's all this stuff that can come along with it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's bad. Like I know my dad, he was a heroin addict for a lot of years, and he just recently, in the last few months, was able to take some medicine, and now he's hepatitis free. You know what I mean? So he calls me, he's like, "I give God the glory, son," you know, because he got saved through God, you know what I mean? And was able to kick and all that. But yeah, so much that baggage that comes along with that, you know what I mean? That a lot of people pay for later in life, you know.
So I started off doing heroin, and then I gradually started doing speedballs, and then when I started doing speedballs, this time when you know the father of my kids, he got busted. Um, the connection, he approached me. He's like, man, why are you doing this stuff? You know, and I said, well, help me. You know, put me on methadone. You know, and so he put me on methadone, and he would pick me up every morning, and he would take me to the clinic, and he was paying for it, you know, took me to the clinic. And so he was a drug dealer. So, you know, after I do the methadone, I would go with him, and he did